Would you like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to make a note that all commissioners are here except for Salsa, Studley, Bossy, and that we have O'Connor on Zoom. Okay. Board norms. Debate, commentary, and discussion are healthy and open. Listening and speaking are equally important, and both should be done with respect and consideration. And focus is on students and our schools, not politics. All right. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda, but we'd like to amend it to add the addendum to the personnel memo that we all received.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, excellent. I think I did that correctly. Okay. So now I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, motion passes. Oh, I didn't take a last look at the community input document. I don't think we had anybody last I checked. Did I miss anybody for public input? Okay. All right. I think there's no one. Okay, thank you. All right, we'd move to the student representatives report. Thank you.
Rutland Middle School is off to a great start. Teachers have been doing an incredible job ensuring our first few weeks went smoothly. We are grateful for their dedication to our students. We have heard from several families who reached out to us and expressed their appreciation for teachers and our bi-weekly check-ins with each of their advisory families. We are excited about our school store, which just opened this week. While we have had a store in the past, we have had a twist on it this year. We will not accept cash. All items ranging from iced tea to sweatshirts can be purchased with points. Teachers can award points to students when they are observed demonstrating respect, integrity, responsibility, and collaboration. Our students are thrilled and are truly engaged in this program. We held our open house last week, and we had a good turnout. Families had a chance to have a light dinner, meet administration, and then take a student-led tour of our school. It's great to see all the happy faces back in school at the Allen Street campus. We're excited to have the Vermont Family Network join us tomorrow night for a session on special education and the law. If you're a parent or guardian, we invite you to attend our first training session this Thursday from 10 to 11:30. Our students have even prepared some delicious snacks for the occasion. This is an excellent opportunity to engage and learn from one another. We hope to see you at our annual back-to-school event on September 28th from 4 to 6. It's always a fun way to build community, and we appreciate your participation. The build of our first electric vehicle has begun at Stafford in our auto technology program. Students are learning all about electric circuits and computer programming as part of this build. It is exciting to see the collaboration between programs as the car moves forward in its structure. We are pleased to announce that 2 Stafford students have been selected as state officers for Vermont Skills USA. Kaylee Selleck was selected as president, and they're a second-year student in our engineering program from Otter Valley Union High School. Mackenzie Ezzo has been selected as vice president and has completed 2 years in engineering and is now a first year in our auto technology program. She is from Pulteney High School. These 2 students will represent the state of Vermont at many local, state, regional, and national events for Skills USA and allow them to expand their leadership skills even further. Thursday evening is our back-to-school night and barbecue. We look forward to welcoming students and their families to Stafford for an informative evening about our school and our programs. We will begin in the RHS Theater at 6 p.m. for a welcome, and then our students and their families will move to their program area. We will wrap up with a barbecue in the cafeteria from 7 to 8 p.m. This year at RHS is off to a great start. We held class meetings with each grade level and introduced the portrait of a graduate. We discussed one characteristic with each grade level: empathy for seniors, integrity with juniors, critical thinking with sophomores, and adaptability with freshmen. We also held our open house for families, which was very well attended. We introduced the portrait of a graduate to parents and used it as an opportunity to emphasize the importance of communication between home and school.
RIS is off to a great start. We are settling into our routines, all while focusing primarily on building our classroom and school communities. RIS expectations are highlighted this month. Always remember to be kind, be brave, be your best, and be you. School pictures at RIS started today and will continue tomorrow and Thursday. Please check in with your child's teacher for your student's specific day. Also this Thursday, September 14th, we are hosting our open house from 5:30 to 6 for grades 4 and 6 to 6:15 to meet with the administration, and 6:15 to 6:45 for grades 3 and 5. We hope to see you there. Students at Northeast are spending this month of September practicing and finding examples of our monthly pause character trait, respect. Our new virtual meeting announcements provide opportunities for students to hear from counselors and the school administration on a variety of topics, from mindfulness tips to students and staff interviews and review of school-wide expectations. Kindergartners are settling in nicely at Northeast and getting acclimated to their classrooms and teachers. Our first and second grade classes are looking forward to the Come Alive Outside Harvest Celebration field trip happening at the end of the month. We look forward to seeing families at our open house event on Thursday, September 21st from 6 to 7 p.m. At Northwest Primary School, students and staff have been working on classroom routines and expectations. We have implemented a community block similar to the one established at Rutland Intermediate School. All staff and students come together for 20 minutes every morning and do activities that build our school community. The students are able to interact with adults that they necessarily do not work with. Our students complete the morning announcements, which includes the dates, birthdays, general news, and we wrap them up with each morning with our PBIS motto. We show respect, we treat others with kindness, we are always safe, and we reach for the stars. Lastly, we look forward to seeing families at our Meet the Teacher event this week on Wednesday, September 13th from 6 to 6:45 p.m. That evening, we will have a raffle for $50 gift cards to Price Chopper and a table of free books for families. Students are encouraged to attend.
Great, thank you both. Thank you. Any questions for them? Bill, would you like to do our superintendent's report?
I would, thanks.
Great.
So I want to remind the board that next week we are starting our strategic planning process, and we have our first meeting for our design team. That is on September 20th, and that's the beginning of planning out our steps to reach the goal of Portrait of a Graduate. So we're taking that next step in our second year. All of these meetings are going to take place at the RHS Theater. That is on Stratton Road at Rutland High School. They go from 4 to 6 p.m., around 6 p.m., and there's 3 of them. And as I said last time, we have the first one next week on September 20th. The second one is on October 19th. And the third one is on December 13th. So we appreciate the board's participation. We'd love to have you all there. If you are planning on attending, you could tell Betty now, or you could tell Betty later. But just let Betty know so we have a good count for the snacks that we're going to provide in the seating. So we look forward to doing that. I have to alert the public and the board that we are beginning our regular safety drills this week. We have that obligation to notify, and so we do a number of different drills. We do fire drills, relocation drills, and a drill that is termed an options-based response to a violent intruder. And so that means, how does a school or individuals in the school respond if they're confronted by an active shooter or an intruder in the building? So we have to go through that whole process. We are following the methodology called Run, Hide, Fight. That is the methodology that is recommended by the Vermont School Safety Center and U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So it's a good, solid practice, and we've been using that for the last few years. So we practice that again with all our kids, and we practice it at a developmental level, so it's appropriate for different age groups. But I have to announce that these drills are happening, and you'll get letters home if you're a parent to hear about when the drills occur. So that starts, I think we have our first one in 2 days, actually. I want to make the board aware that we received word from the Agency of Education that 2 of our schools were selected by the AOE for what is called comprehensive support. What that means for us is more money from the AOE and more technical assistance, and that what they do with that, or what our schools will do with that, will be to support more instruction and more student learning, especially for kids who are struggling in the classroom. So the 2 schools selected for that are Northeast and Northwest. Rob's been in contact with the AOE, and we'll be learning more about it as we go along. We just heard about it this last week, so I'm sure there's going to be more information on that coming. Speaking of Rob, our assistant superintendent, he reached the magic number, or he will reach the magic number pretty soon that will allow him to retire, so we want to congratulate him for that. And I would like to say, I'll say one small thing. I said we as a group over there really appreciate Rob's service and leadership, but he told me, if you say anything glowing about me, you're in trouble, so I'll keep that to myself. He also said, please don't mention the last place Yankees, so I won't talk about that either. So we have a committee that will be doing the search process to replace Rob and fill those big shoes. Pam Reed is going to lead that committee. It's a screening committee that will be comprised of a number of different constituencies, and we'll have students, school board members, parents, staff involved in that. And we'd like to get started as soon as possible because we expect that we'll have other positions to fill as we go along. So that will happen in the next few weeks, and we hope to have a worthy candidate by the November board meeting. So that's our hoped for timeline. So, and I would just like to thank, I think you guys mentioned it over there, that your school year has started very well, and I want to thank our families and our staff for making that happen. We had a really nice start. You walk through the buildings, kids are working really hard, there's big smiles on their faces, everything looks great, and that takes a lot of work to make that happen, make it happen smoothly. So we appreciate all the folks that were involved in setting this all up, and the kids as well for coming in and getting ready to go right off the bat. September's a great month in schools, so it's fun to be around. We have athletic contests already happening, and we have homecoming coming up in the next couple weeks. I think that's the weekend of the 22nd and 23rd, so that'll be a fun event. Something I heard about recently is our support services folks are offering some learning opportunities to our parent community. And the first one is tomorrow night, actually, and there's a little flyer that comes with this. It's going to occur at Allen Street campus from 5:30 to 7 o'clock. And the topic for parents who would like to learn more is called Special Education in the Law. So there'll be a number of different opportunities. There's another one on October 11th called The Anatomy of the IEP. So interesting topics for folks who want to learn more about special education and the supports we offer. This one also has dinner and childcare provided, so that'll be great. So if you're interested in that, we hope you can join us.
Suddenly the whole board will be there.
There's food also at the portrait of.
Oh, yes, we always
have
have food, yeah. I'll mention that again when we get to that.
Mention that again, yeah. So we're in full swing, and we appreciate everybody that helped make that happen so well, so thank you.
All right, thanks, Bill. Ted, would you like to join us for the budget planning and timeline? Rob won't let us say anything nice about him, so I definitely won't say that he'll be missed immensely and that he has big shoes to be filled, so, yeah.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate the time to speak with you tonight. The intent, the purpose is to give you an overview of what to expect in the next several months as we embark upon our annual budgeting cycle. These plans were discussed last Tuesday with the Finance Committee, who took no exception, but we wanted to give the full board, obviously, an opportunity to comment and provide any guidance on the process. And then I have a chart that briefly outlines some of the challenges that will be included in preparing this year's budget so that all board members can begin to think about those, okay? So let me see if I can. Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, so these two charts are going to show you some of the key dates that consist of the process. We're already underway, of course, in beginning to develop some of our expense and revenue budgets, and most importantly, key assumptions. The main message that I want to share with the board tonight with this is that both the Finance Committee and the full Board of School Commissioners will have 3 to 4 opportunities to review the progress of the budget over the next several months. The goal is to make sure that everyone has ample opportunity to understand where we're going and what we're trying to accomplish. And of course, that never precludes you from providing guidance in between those meetings, should you have questions or ask for additional information. And of course, we welcome that input, so there'll be no surprises. So on October 3rd will be a Finance Committee meeting, and on the 10th, of course, your school board meeting, where we'll begin to review basic assumptions that we're contemplating as a key foundation for the budget, including staffing levels, some inflationary assumptions, and some other key inputs. Then, during the month of October, we work with the administration, principals, service program directors to develop their initial pass of what they think their expense budgets are going to be and what they think grant revenues will be available to match that. So, by the early November meetings of both the Finance Committee and the board, we would expect to be able to give you a preliminary outlook, a preliminary overview of what those budget numbers are going to be looking like, and potentially a couple of alternate scenarios, just depending upon the range of assumptions that we might have for your consideration. Then, as you probably also recall, typically in November, the school board reviews pass of the Stafford Technical Center budget, because they're a month ahead of us for tuition billing purposes. At the end of November, we are going to ask all of our budget contacts to freeze their work for 2 weeks. That will enable us to put together and consolidate a more thorough overview that we can present in early December to the Finance Committee and Board. At that point, we would call it an actual budget proposal and not just an overview. As we have done before in recent years, I've typically made myself available to the City Board of Aldermen and Alderwomen to give them a courtesy review before the budget. I've been always very clear to say I need to address these matters first with the school district's board, but after that I could potentially go over. They have typically a meeting later in December. They don't have formal approval over the budget, of course, just to be clear, but they have a vote like every other resident. And in the spirit of trying to build upon those relationships and provide good communications, especially to some of these civic leaders, we have found this to be a good discussion. Hopefully, again, no surprises. Then early January, you see once again the last Finance Committee review. If the Finance Committee chooses to have a meeting the day after New Year's, that will depend, but the option is always there. And then on January 9th, that would be the typical meeting at which the school board would decide whether to approve the budget proposal or not. And the intent in the interim reviews that I've described would be so that by the time we get to the 9th, that vote should be perfunctory. I mean, hopefully, if we've done a good job for you, you will have familiarity and comfort with the numbers. You have had an opportunity to ask questions. That may mean, for example, at the early December review, you say, hey, we would like to see some more on this particular area, or what would happen if we did that? And that gives us a couple of weeks still before the year-end holidays to turn around some guidance for you and provide that ahead of the meeting. So it's a no surprises attempted approach. Then, as some of you may know, typically by the third week in January, we're asked to provide the formal ballot language to the town clerk, and then, of course, the town meeting day. I want to tell you that I left February off of there, but February is actually a very active month where we try and get out to the community and speak to as many members of the leadership of organizations as we can. Several members of this board have been extremely helpful to us in arranging some of these meetings with Rotary clubs and such, and we will try and do the same thing again. Each year for the last couple of years, we've been able to do a little bit more of that communication, and the intent is, it's a complicated topic. If we can get out there in person and convey, the essence and a few key understandable messages, hopefully that helps everybody make better decisions. And it could be coincidence, but last year we had a relatively high vote of approval. 62% of those voting approved the budget, 38% did not. And that was one of the wider margins we've had. So it was either coincidence or maybe we're doing a good job getting out there and communicating, and I would like to hope the latter. But we'll be out there with your help. This coming budget for fiscal year '25 will have challenges, as they all do. There'll be some interesting challenges in a few key areas, which I've highlighted here. You probably recall that we have 4 agreements with various labor union groups, and all 4 of those are going to expire on June 30th of 2024, which means between now and next June, the school district will be entering labor negotiations with each of those groups. Just as an example of how this is not necessarily a short and easy process, on the last go-around, it took 417 days for the negotiation process with 2 of these groups. So it started in December of 2020. It didn't finish until the very end of January 2022. It would be nice if we can make that process a little bit more efficient and productive, but my point to you is, by the time we're going to be asking you to approve a budget for '25, we will not have any clear indication in terms of what those negotiations are going to yield for percentage salary increases and stuff. We will be able to give you by that time some pretty clear guidance on what benefits costs are likely to do. Because, as an example, one of the larger employee benefits that we have, and actually I should back up and say, on average, for every dollar that the district spends in employee salaries, the district also spends an additional 50 cents for the respective employee benefits. Another way to say that is, for every $100 that we pay to an employee, the all-in cost for the taxpayer in the district is $150. And it's important to count both costs because some of those, like the medical plan, are going up at some significant rates. They've been going up double digits the last couple of years. Just taking a look at what the rate filings are being made by hospitals so far in the last several months, could very well be in the 10% range again this year. We'll have a better idea come November, December. Energy, that third bullet point shows you how old this slide is. I made this slide last week when West Texas Intermediate was at $87 a barrel, and today it traded over $89. And national gasoline price was $3.81, and today it's $3.84 according to AAA. So we know what direction that's going in for the time being. Property insurance rates, well, of course, we had the flooding here in Vermont, which was very unfortunate and costly, but it turns out that property insurance rates are set nationally, and so all of the storms and fires in many places are going to impact, according to our insurance trust representatives, the rates going into 25 as companies naturally try and spread and recover those costs across all of their markets. We have budgeted for fiscal 24 and most certainly will budget for 25. A portion of the costs anticipated to replace the turf field. As many of you probably know, we are already past the rated service life of our existing field, thanks in large measure to how well it was constructed and how well it has been maintained. But based upon input from the athletic department and others, it's time to replace that. So we're planning on doing that starting the coming spring and into the summer. As Glenn has discussed or will discuss, there are other potential projects out there, such as stormwater construction, that could be substantial. So we'll be prioritizing and thinking about those. Some will be discretionary, some will be non-discretionary, and we'll put together that inventory or priority list for your review as we get into the fall and do this budgeting exercises. probably aware that there have been some changes in the funding mechanisms for special ed. In the past, we had been on a reimbursement model. It's been transitioned to block grants. We're still in the process of assessing, how that is or is not going to impact us, but we'll, of course, stay within our means and make it work either way. Along the lines of funding, our CFP title grants, federal grants, Title I, 4, 2, those are big programs, as you know, and our contacts at the Agency of Education are saying, so far at least, their contacts in Washington, D.C. at the national level are indicating to anticipate a fairly constant level of federal grant funding, which would be good news considering the current federal budget pressures, but don't plan on any significant increase. And then finally, we've worked for a number of years on implementing, new student weightings as part of the state's education funding formula. The board had approved some contributions to the Coalition for Vermont Student Equity, and several of us were very involved in lobbying for that with the intent of updating the metrics, hopefully to the advantage of communities that, have a higher share of people from lower income. And that indeed occurred. By the time the final legislation came out and was signed, those provisions were watered down a bit, and there were some offsets as the weightings were updated to give additional weight to rural districts. And of course, since Rutland City is an urban district, we benefit a little bit less. So we're anticipating a possibly modest increase when these new weightings get implemented for 25 in terms of direction of funding to us, but probably not as significant as we had been hoping earlier. And of course, I put out to the side in a memo box because it's not an uncertainty. We know it's coming. All of the ESSER funding, the last tranche will sunset in September of 2024. So, of course, that means for fiscal 25, we'll get January, August, and September in which we can use ESSER funding to continue to provide for some of our programs and activities. But we're also working very closely with Rob and with Abby and others to plan for the transition for when that funding does sunset. Some people are optimistically hoping that the federal government will decide to extend that deadline. We're taking the approach of hope for the best but plan for the worst, and therefore assume that it will not be extended, and if we're pleasantly surprised, then so be it. So those are some of the main areas that we're thinking about, and as I've mentioned, if there are some other potential sensitivities or concerns regarding the budgeting for fiscal 25, we would love to hear from you because, of course, this board represents a wide range of perspectives and experience, and we want to get the most robust forecast that we can. May I answer any questions that you might have? Yes.
Ted, do you know if there's a look forward in terms of how high gas prices are going to go?
You can find those. As a matter of fact, I was looking online today at an energy website. I was looking both at heating oil as well as gasoline, given what the district buys. And this particular site, which is pretty good, it's using some trend analysis to suggest that by the end of this current calendar year, it's expecting heating oil prices, by the end of this month, heating oil prices will be at about $3.40 a gallon. And it's anticipating that in '24, it's very likely that heating oil prices during the calendar year would increase by 10%. I think that's more of a it's going in this direction kind of observation than any accurate forecast. It's just so hard to tell.
Yeah.
So we will look at trends and we'll update our forecasts. Of course, the other thing too is these prices vary seasonally, and so we look at the seasonal periods in which we actually use it. But when you have the Saudis, for example, announcing that they're going to continue their cutback of 1 million barrels a day for the next several months, it's just hard to tell. So we will assume, like we did for this year, that prices are going to be within a certain upper range, just to make sure we've got cushion. We'll discuss that with the committee, and if some of you are aware of other information, we'd be glad to incorporate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
All right, well, I look forward to working with you. Thank you so much for your time, and like I often say to people, the solution is out there, we just have to find it, and we will.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ted. All right, now we'd like to have a recovery update from Abby Brodowski and Glenn Scott, please.
Glasses on. Like, I can't actually see. Thank you.
Well done.
I'm Abby Brodowski, and I didn't have my glasses on. I'm good, thanks. Those are readers, anyway. So I'm the recovery coordinator for the district, and this is our third year of recovery. At this point, we are on track to expend the ESSER II funding by the end of this month, which is our second round of federal funding related to COVID recovery. And we'll be working through the third round, ARP ESSER, over the course of the next year. You're my slide person.
I got it now.
I'll do. So the portrait of a graduate work shows us what we would like students to become over their time in Rutland City Public Schools. And in order to accomplish that, we need to model it in what we do as a district. So this recovery update today uses Portrait of a Graduate as a lens through which we can understand and review our recovery process. And it provides a dynamic and unique way to see how recovery actually aligns with our values. We're going to start with adaptability. So during recovery, our CPS has needed to change structures, both in how we think about education and physically, in order to promote resilience and create solutions to difficult problems. Our outdoor classroom projects and the Rutland Intermediate School Community Kitchen renovation provide flexible and adaptable spaces that are used in conjunction with our community. We're also more prepared for future issues like another pandemic should they arrive. So our outdoor classrooms are actually in progress. You can see some images here of Northwest and PPLC, and then the other ones will happen as those move along. And on the slides, the bold vendors are ones that are ESSER funded, but you'll notice that the vast majority of our vendors are local, if not in Vermont. So next up, we have collaboration. This multi-year, multi-vendor, multi-layered, and I mean that literally, asbestos and carpet removal projects were entirely managed in-house by our RCPS construction team. In conjunction with our incredible maintenance and custodial staff, over 40 spaces in RIS alone received new flooring, and by my calculation, which could be off slightly, about 112 district-wide. This project was collaboration at its best, and every member of the full RCPS team helped improve how our schools look, feel, and function. And as a former English teacher, this is probably my favorite competency. RCPS works really hard to communicate its successes with the community, and our teams work really hard to communicate with the school principals and staff and people impacted by the construction and the projects that we do, and we want to try to avoid any major impacts on programming. ARP ESSER also requires that we engage in community, and so you see me come occasionally, and I'll be back, I'm sure, to say, hey, here's another survey. I need you to tell me what you think about how we're spending this third round of funding, because each time we change the grant, we need to make sure that the community, the board, and everyone has a chance to weigh in. Also, the grant has supported our Portrait of a Graduate work and continues to support the strategic planning process, as well as our district and school website redesign. You're getting this.
I got it.
So
Collaboration.
this is we collaborate a lot. It's good. So ESSER also supported the RCPS investment in EduClimber, and this, I'm going to get a little techie for a moment, is a data visualization tool, and it pulls behavioral, academic, and social data from a variety of existing platforms that we already use, so you can see this information in one place. Users see a wide spectrum of data from individual student level all the way up to the entire district, depending on your access. And this tool enables users to quickly and holistically see how either students are doing or how the whole system is functioning in order to make wiser data-based decisions. And that is crucial for critical thinking. The focus of how we actually care in our district is based in empathy. So we talk about every student every day, and connecting with each other obviously pulls us together as a broader community. ESSER supports our equity audit and our equity work group, and provided high-dosage summer tutoring to 134 K through 8 students this summer, taught by teachers and special educators. There are 13 positions throughout the district, and it funds Rutland High School's School Within a School, all to provide for our post-pandemic needs and for the needs of some of our most vulnerable. And while Portrait of a Graduate gives us a shared set of values, the wellness planning that we do around recovery and K-12 curriculum work that we've done during recovery provides stability, integrity, and clarity, especially during these times of change. So as we move forward, our wellness plans, which are plans that our schools work on that are connected to recovery, will become the strategic plan. So this is going to roll right into what we're doing in the strategic plan, and we'll continue to build upon the foundation set during this time. And now when we have a teacher change grade levels or somebody retires, it's clearer what's being taught for someone new coming in, and our students have a smoother path from kindergarten out the door in 12th grade. And finally, our last slide is wellness. And according to the Portrait of a Graduate, wellness is partly an evolution of place, and we do have buildings that are aging. So the largest single investment made by Rutland City Public Schools with ESSER funding is for our HVAC and for cleaner air in our schools. I'm going to explain these phases to you because it's the bulk of the next year's work in addition to outdoor classrooms. In phase 1, we are in progress and we'll be finishing up in the fall, hopefully early winter. And that is taking a look at all the systems, the building building management systems that control HVAC. So if you are on your computer and you want to change the heat in a particular place, there's a communication that needs to happen. There are controls and there's actual equipment. So we're looking at those systems to see what needs to be repaired, replaced, updated, and fixed. And that takes a lot of time. They're very complicated systems. Then phase 2, A and B, is actually equipment replacement. If you recall, we broke it into 2 phases because we went out to bid multiple times. So the first phase, Pierpoint got a new boiler. That is done. We've installed 17 new heat pumps at Stafford, and we're 99% complete. We have to finish up the last little bits of that project, so phase 2A is almost done. Phase 2B is in progress. That'll continue through the fall and into early winter, hopefully be done sometime in the winter. And that's more major equipment replacement, things we knew we needed to replace before we ever even looked at the system. So the highlights here are the Rutland High School cafeteria. There's some air handlers and heating systems there, and the Stafford welding shop, which we have already had 4 air scrubbers installed in that welding shop, and they just have to be hooked up, and then they're ready to go to start making cleaner as soon as that happens. We have smaller projects happening too at Allen Street and Rutland Middle School. So for the final phase, that is way too, we have another phase. I've got phase 3A, and this phase is actually out to bid right now. So in this phase, we're actually replacing parts in the building management system and the controls so that we actually have some systems that are decades old, and we may need to replace and upgrade the software and the control mechanisms, not the equipment itself. And then phase 3B is the rest of it. It's a laundry list of whatever else we feel like we can get to. We're in the middle of figuring that out and hope to put that out to bid sometime in the fall or winter. So, you can go now. I hope that this journey through the Portrait of a Graduate competencies illustrates that recovery is indeed aligned with our values, and it is a bridge that will take us forward into the future beyond this recovery period. So thank you for your time, and I'm open for questions. Yeah.
On the critical thinking piece,
Yeah.
can you just remind me, what kind of data are you planning on collecting there? Like, what is going to be reported through that product?
Yeah, so it's actually a really interesting product, and it takes multiple years, takes 3 years to get it fully rolling. But you can take information from Infinite Campus, you can take information academic, behavioral, from different programs that we already use, and they're fed into one tool that allows you to see it in one place. So if you can imagine you're in a meeting, you're working with a student or a group of students, you can pre-figure out what it is you need to see to make sure that you're looking at the right information, what you what you need to know about the student, all in one place, instead of going to this program, this program, this program.
Great.
Right? Yeah. And so, and I don't know if you're talking about it later, but
It's going to be a short demo.
yeah.
Wait, foreshadowing. I'm scared.
Wow.
We did some professional development with the district and the building leaders to sort of train the trainers. So we just got to play around with it, And then it'll be rolled out over time to teams and staff as is appropriate. And there's different levels of access depending on what you need. Like if I'm teaching in an English class, I don't need district-wide data, you know, so that's, and there's a really cool mode where you can see things anonymously, so you can anonymize everything. So what I showed you didn't have student names, it just assigns a number. So it's pretty neat tool.
That's
Yeah.
very cool.
Anybody else? Gosh, thank you both so much.
Yes,
thank you.
Really well done. Nice.
I'm gonna thank Abby for giving away my entire piece.
Mr. Bliss, thank you for coming and joining us for a curriculum and summer professional development update.
While I'm setting this up, I know you know this, but one of the things that's amazing to watch, especially with the team of people that are sitting here, is one, Abby's learning curve from the onset, taking on this job. These are areas of work that your average high school English teacher doesn't have to dive into every day. But because Abby is a voracious learner, she attacks it and takes it on and takes on an awful lot that would we had to have done that here in this office, that everything would have come to a grinding halt. So that's really valuable. And you notice how that relationship between Abby and Glenn has developed. Glenn is pretty much the silent, yes, I'll put it out in the field, he's much more dynamic, managing those jobs and things. So I'm here to talk a little bit about professional development and curriculum. And I am going to show a little bit about the EduClimber piece that we have. There's actually a sandbox or an artificial data set that we can use to do demonstrations with, so you can see you get a little bit of an idea about it. It's huge, and when we get to it, you'll see a little bit more about it. Everything that we're doing kind of aligns with major district initiatives. You can see that Abby talked about the Portrait of a Graduate, and down here in the bottom right where you see the grain, that's Lorraine Bargman, our curriculum coach's model for how our 3-year curriculum professional work unfolds, and you'll see more about that. Another big initiative in terms of professional development and work is the Illustrative Math. There's a new math program for K-8, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. And this Daily Cafe, as I explained to new staff, it's not a place where you go to get coffee. It is a literacy framework that we're trying to get everybody, at least K-6, to implement. All right, so district initiatives. You heard about strategic planning. I just want to make sure I mention that. Bill Olson talked about that. I hope everybody can come. K-12, this year in the 3rd year, and we'll get to more of this, this is the 3rd year of our curriculum work. This year is all about units and assessment. So we have all our faculty and staff in every instructional area designing units of how they're going to instruct to get to the prioritized standards and content that they decided on previously. You heard about Illustrative Math, new K-8 math program. Actually, I can tell you that grades 6 to 8 had been using that last year as well. And so now we're going to be running K-8. There are some real positives to that. Daily Cafe again. You heard about EduClimber. Thanks, Abby. And then I also wanted you to know that one of the things we do is, this is a good way to kind of round this thing, is like creating a culture of dignity built on trauma-informed practices, relationships, and restorative practices, and fill in the blank. There are so many names for how you make sure that everyone in your learning community feels welcome and recognized. And one of the things, one of the foundations of that a few years ago, we did a book study on this book, Belonging Through a Culture of Dignity, The Keys to Successful Implementation. It's a great book. I have an extra copy if you'd like one. All right, so strategic plan, you heard about that. Professional development. So the reason EduClimber falls in with professional development is we had the entire leadership team take a learning piece over 2 days on how to work through EduClimber. It is a massive database tool, and the target for full implementation is 3 years. But let's see if we can do this. I tried this today. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Here we go. So we're going to jump into, this is EduClimber, and this is this tool that we were all learning about. And it's an easy login. This is what we call the sandbox, so it's not real data. We are, and just bear with me for a minute. And sign in. And so what EduClimber is, as Abby described, is this tool where you have a system that pulls data from many, many places. One of the key places it pulls data from is our student information system, Infinite Campus. It also pulls from our benchmarking assessment tool called FastBridge, which also handles our progress monitoring. And it also allows us, we can say, okay, we want you to pull data from this other tool that we use. And the reason you use data like this is to say, like, what are our big goals? How are we doing? How are our students doing? How are they learning? And then how are students in different subgroups doing, in different schools doing? And that way it helps us really target how we're doing in terms as a big district. We can also have a view as a school, as a grade level, as a classroom, as a small group. And so, just some quick views. Let's see. Ta-da. So, one of the things the thing can do is we can set up specific dashboards for our district. And just to choose one, this is all kind of what we call fake data. So we say, okay, we want to view this dashboard. And let's say in this fake school district, there are 4 big goals. This is attendance assessment on, I think they use like literacy benchmarking just to demonstrate. And then down here, they say, okay, incident visualization, this would be a behavior view, and then a different form of assessment to see how are our kids doing. And if we wanted to, we could set up targets on anything from, one of the things we keep talking about is to make sure you have a full and most successful high school graduation rate. One of the things you need is for all freshmen to achieve a full complement of credits in their freshman year that they're supposed to earn. When I was a kid, if I got into a hole as a student, I just about gave up. There's no digging out. So what we want to try to make sure is our students are successful early, and then they'll be successful later. So that's one thing you can look at. One of the things you can do with is, once you have a data set, you can drill in deeper. Here's by school, and here's Dewey Elementary, and I can say, okay, what's going on at Dewey Elementary, and I can see what student is doing what in Dewey. The same thing could be true for all the schools in Rutland City. This is just a dashboard where you might land. One of the exciting things about this deal is this 3D setup. And what the 3D does is allow you to look at data and information from a number of different ways. And in this particular school district, I'm going to say, okay, let's look at all the schools, let's look at all the grades, and let's search for what happens when we see that. And you see all these little dots land in. There are 6,760 dots there. Each dot represents a student in this fake district. I would say, that's too many. I can chop it back by school or whatever. But so Abby was talking about, you can look at different things. What I'm always interested in is attendance. And so let's say in this little school district, I say, look, if you attend school, your chances of succeeding are much better than if you don't. So I want to know what's my attendance rate, and I want to say like, I'm really interested because the beginning of school year, I want to know how we do in September. And then I'm going to say, okay, I got September. Do I want the attendance rate, which is going to be a percentage, or I want to know days missed? And I was like, how many days missed? I want to know how many kids missed 5 days of school or more, just in the month of September. And so then it's going to say, there's 2 ways to look at it. One is the SIS report, and one is full day. SIS is by period. So let's say Holden blows off 3 of his classes in the middle of the day. He's going to get marked for 3 absences that day. All right? But Amaya, she goes all day. Everything's cool. So we're going to look at full days, who's in, who's out, and we're going to look at school year just for fun, 22-23, to make sure our nice fake district has anything in there. And then I'm going to say, okay, let's search for it. So how many kids in this district missed 5 days? Wow, 508 kids missed 5 days of school in September that year. But wait a minute, I'm a little more worried about, let's not look at all the schools, let's look at just one. I want to look at Dweck. No, let's not look at Dweck. Let's look at, it's tough, Escalante Elementary, all right. Let's see what happens then. 6 kids at Escalante Elementary missed that many days of school. Now, we are in what we call top secret mode, what Abby was describing. You can actually show data without disclosing the confidentiality of the student. So if I was using this tool in a presentation with a data team that didn't have the need to know everything about every student, they wouldn't see the stuff. They would just see these numbers, and I could go back later and say, I want to know who these 6 kids are. Okay? I'll show you one other thing and then we'll move on, but you get the idea. This is a pretty complex tool. And here's all the kids that missed it. I can disaggregate this. Let's see if it works. Let's choose by gender. I want to see females, males, and not declaring. And it says all students. Well, it gave me everybody, so I suppose I just have to choose one. Let's choose how are the boys doing. All right, 287 boys, missed that many. And so across Rutland City Public Schools, we can do the same thing. If I'm interested in what attendance looks like across the school district, by grade level, by classroom, by school, how are we doing, it will give us an indication of how we're performing. And you can imagine, here I am looking at people who are about to embark on strategic planning. Let's say one of your big picture goals in strategic planning is attendance rate. It's everybody's goal, it doesn't have to be yours, but that's a big one. We could track it pretty regularly at school and in different places. So you can make different goals, and this is a big help in kind of guiding that. There's an awful lot of capacity here. You can use it to create intervention groups and chart instructional goals. There's just so much at work here, and like I said, it's a 3-year implementation phase before you're really up to fully running on that. So that's EduClimber. Illustrative math is basic. One of the things about illustrative math, our new problem, is a problem-based math program. Every teacher in the district went through a 2-day training on how this math program looks and works. And then every teacher in the district who's using it also went through a PD on what is the first unit. And every time we get into a unit, we're going to support, with the help of our math coach, Dana Johnson, who, by the way, is spearheading this initiative. With her help, every time we're running into a new unit, we're going to have small teams of people prepping up for how does this unit look, how does it go. We've created a pacing guide across the district for how each one should be implemented. One of the best things I can say, and the reasons for doing this with illustrative math and the professional development related, is if you're a math student, let's say Amaya's gone through K to 12, or what grade are you in, 11? K to 11 here in Rutland City Public Schools. If she went and had one math program, K to 2, a different one, 3, 4, a different one, 5, 6, a different one, 7, 8, every time she had that transition, she'd have to learn a new language. So our goal is to make sure we have everybody pulling in the same direction, using the same language, as close to 100% implementation as we can possibly get. And there is, I don't necessarily have to go there because we're running along, but there's a link there in your slides, and all you have to do is look up illustrative math, and you can see demos on what it looks like. But it's a problem-based study, so you let kids wrestle with the mathematics. The more you turn it over, the more the kids think about math, and the more you can see their learning. All right, Daily Cafe, same kind of thing. It's a literacy framework that instills behaviors. Independence creates a classroom of highly engaged readers, writers, and learners, and provides teachers with the time and structure to meet diverse student needs. It holds no curricular content. It can be used to meet any school, district, state, or national standards. It is a framework and a structure for how you manage your classroom when you're instructing literacy. And if you go into, just so you can see, let's see if I can do it again. 2 for 2. If you go into there, one of the things you can see here, even with my glasses, Abby, I don't know if I can read it. But you can say there are, the components include, if you took a closer look at Anyway here, the components are about reading, working with words, writing, listening to reading, and oh shoot, I can't remember. But I know my pals would get it. Essential elements. Not working. There you go. But you can go on to Daily 5. There you go. Read to self, working on writing, read to someone, word work, and listening to reading. So you can go in if you're interested, or anybody can, and take a look at how this is set up, how it works, if you want to learn more about it. It's not that complicated. This is the sales platform, so they want everybody to have easy understanding. And then the culture of dignity piece, just so you know, dignity stands above differences. Dignity is the state or quality of being worthy to belong. That's why the recognition of our dignity of every student is central to our work. That's our goal. We want every student to feel like they've got a place, like they belong. And it's a constant kind of effort to make sure we're trying to reach out and do that. We heard that loud and clear from our student panel at new staff orientation. And that's the reference of the book. Our 3-year curriculum project, just so you can see it. First year was standards. Second year was scope and sequence. This year is unit planning and assessment. And one of the things I want to show you here, is it going to work? Yep, we just got to sign in. Is, come on now, try again. We can do it. Yes, we can. So this is Lorraine Bargman, our curriculum coach. Hi, Lorraine. I told her she had to watch it. Developed with a lot of help from the coaching pod over at Grove Street and input from many, many people, a structure for how teachers would develop and model each unit plan for everything that gets instructed within a scope and sequence across the year. And so this is a template with descriptors of what goes into a unit plan, the title, the summary, any curricular links, duration of the unit. We've got transferable skills and our portrait of a graduate competencies in there to select from because we want that to be part of everything we do. Targeted and prioritized standards that are assessed, additional standards not assessed. And then any prior learning or technology that we may need, major topics and assignments, differentiation and accommodation of topics as needed, any essential questions, enduring understanding, and explanation of each thing, student understanding. And so every unit is going to have a file like this that gives the great deep explanation of what it is we're trying to attack in every content area. And one of the things Lorraine has taught us all is to say and think, I think as Abby kind of said, you develop this not for the people who are teaching today, it is for the teacher who walks in next year. And so the teacher who walks in next year who's brand new and says, where do I start? So that I'm aligned with what everybody's doing and I'm not creating random arrows. Any teacher is going to be able to walk in, link up, see all the stuff, and say, okay, now I have a foundation. Every teacher has an art to what they do. They put their own spin on everything. But when we all have unit plans like this across every content area, every grade level, there's no one getting lost. And to be honest, coming out of COVID, we've had that. We've gotten disconnected. And it's not anybody, it's not a bad judgment. It's just that we were all solving problems really fast. And as we did that, we created some disconnected work. So those are our unit plans. Okay, Lorraine, you can turn off now. Just so you know, in terms of summer improvement effort, we had 19 separate events involving over 70 faculty members K-12. And topics include kindergarten readiness, K-12 curriculum, PBIS, trauma intelligent schools, data analysis, tech integration. In the summertime, it's not time where teachers take a break. Teachers really get down to work and start moving ahead. We love it when someone says, oh, isn't it nice to have a break in the summer? It's a different kind of break, but nobody really takes a big break. We all stay. And that's a lot, but any question and answer.
Charlene, go, yeah.
The software, I think, is awesome. I think it's going to create lots of questions from the board now because they can. But anyway, so Jump Rope, like Infinite Campus, things like that, those softwares just happen to integrate with this particular program?
Infinite Campus, no problem. Jump Rope requires some additional, what do we call that, bridging and querying. That's not an automatic one. But FastBridge, Infinite Campus, easy upload, easy connection. There's some other tools we have that make an easy connection, but there are some that might require, or in fact, I know will require some customization.
A bridge
to
or
make
whatever.
use. Yep,
But otherwise, we're keeping all of our programs that we are using
that is correct.
to
Well,
feed into that.
we, as always, and just as I said, when we were solving problems in the middle of COVID, we're picking up tools and different things to do. And a lot of that kind of created scattered effort. So even this week and last week, we're looking at some of the online tools we use and say, okay, how many of these things are still being used? Because everything you purchase costs a little money, it's a little distraction. And so we're able to weed out some things that we say like, wow, we used to use that a lot. We don't use it at all now because we're mostly in a face-to-face format. So this tool we might not need. But this one that you can use hybrid, let's stick with that, at least in these grade levels. This one in this grade level, we're not even using that anymore, let's get rid of it. And so that way we're trying to work more aligned and a little bit more cost efficient as well.
Heather, go ahead.
So I had a question about the EduClimber, which looks like an incredible, there's going to be so many questions, tool to filter and process all of this information for all of the students. And with your example, it included all of the schools, hypothetically. So it would be just be in our district, of course. It wouldn't be other way, outside districts. But I'm curious, so all of the students' information about everything essentially is filtered through this program. So anyone can access it, correct?
No.
Or just any
The rights,
staff?
the rights are by students that are rostered to you.
Okay, that was my
Yep.
confusion.
So
So
even if you and Sarah teach in the same building, you have no right to see her students.
okay,
You would only see your students. If I'm the
Gotcha.
principal, I can see all students. If I'm the superintendent, assistant superintendent, I see the whole district.
Mm.
Principal at Northwest has no need to see kids at RIS. There's no connection.
that was my confusion. Like, okay,
Yeah.
interesting. So
It's a
I could
fair-
see everybody's
Ah,
everything.
It's a good
Okay.
question, because there is the right to privacy, even in top secret mode.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to have people peering in and looking into folks' records that have no business looking there.
Perfect. That was my.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I want to tell you, can I tell you a quick story?
Sure.
After we did this professional development, Bill and I were walking down to the middle school for a meeting, and we were discussing, it's funny. We're walking along discussing our technological inadequacies because the day after the meeting, some of the principals walked in and said, wow, I played with that thing last night, and I did this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And Bill and I are like, how do you turn that thing on?
Look at you now, though.
It took me 4 days of practice just to do that. However, our more
Adaptability.
our digital natives that work on our admin are way ahead of us in their application of this already, and I think it will only serve to allow us to really do well in how we analyze the work that we do.
Rob, I think as we look to the strategic planning process, I know you mentioned it, but I think a lot of us know one of the hardest parts of strategic planning is finding what to measure and
Yeah.
and how to measure it. Collecting data, this is like a dream,
Yeah.
right? Like that's so much of the work, and I think that's where I think you all said you maybe got hung up last time is like you were trying to measure too many things, and now the data is like conceivably at your fingertips, so it can really help us look to the right measurements, so yeah.
I mean, a lot of PowerPoints coming.
A lot of data.
And if you think of, I'm always trying to influence this by saying, look, there are some high-level, big-picture goals that, based on research, if you do them in an educational institution and you achieve them, the impact is huge and it'll last for a long time. One of the things like a full complement of credits in the freshman year is a big one, or a clean, you might even say like attendance rates through third grade, reading level at the end of third grade. Those are big ones. Everybody knows them.
Well, there'll be
So-
questions that we might not even know to ask right now, and it'll evolve someday, but we
Yeah,
have
it
the
will.
data to figure it out, or to
Mhm.
Yes,
do
it
it.
will.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
Great, thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you. Okay, Glenn, do you want to join us in Commissioner Studley's absence to give the building committee report, please?
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Pull up the slides from last Tuesday. Do a quick run through here, as Mary Beth had shared. Reporting on Stephanie's behalf here. And some of that was covered in our ESSER recovery, but I'll get into a little detail on those projects. Basically, the projects we're going to talk about occurred over the summer. There were some major projects that we got a lot done. There were 3 funding sources, basically. ESSER funding, there's a couple insurance claims, and then also our, basically our local budget funds, which are scheduled capital repairs and replacements. So as I go through that, kind of think of those 3 funding sources as what funded these major projects. The 2 topics we covered were summer project update and then the stormwater permitting update, which, as I've kind of been sharing along the way, are occurring at our RIS, RMS campus, the high school in Northeast, but I'll get into that a little bit. Northwest, our elementary school, we were able to replace the gym roof. It was in pretty bad shape. You can see in the right there was some rotting of the wood and wood structure. So that is now 100% weatherproof and a good 30 years. Hopefully that roof will last us now. Northwest, this was an ESSER-funded project. It's underway. This is also ESSER-funded, but basically this is going to be an outdoor play pad with a basketball hoop and lines for other activities as well. At Northeast, this is a roof replacement. This was an insurance claim. This is about 12,000 square feet of roofing. This was back in December of '22. There was a major windstorm that pulled the edge of this roof off. Our insurance adjuster called it a total loss, so we were able to replace that entire roof section of that Northeast building. And then these are the pictures before of our RIS auditorium. On the right is the total before with the old seats, the flooring, window treatments, paint. On the left is about midway through when we had just finished replacing or pulling the tile and then getting the asbestos mastic and glue and tiles out of there. And then this is the finished product. If you haven't had a chance, this is a really great space to take a tour of. They just finished installing the window curtains today, so it's 100% complete. It's a great space. We were able to even paint the stage in addition to that. So about 80% of this, actually probably more, probably 90% of this was covered by ESSER funds. The painting of the outside or of the walls, painting of the stage and window treatments were all local funds. But the rest of this, the seats, the flooring, the asbestos, mastic and old tile removal was all ESSER funded. This is, Abby had shared this in her slides, but this is one of the RIS kitchens that we were able to upgrade this summer. And then there were about 24 classrooms that we were able to do this summer. We had been doing some over each break, but over the summer we did around 24. So you see the before and after, the carpet on the left, and then the wonderful luxury vinyl tile on the right there. Band room, this is a before and after. That's 1953. That's the original tile when it was installed on the right. That was asbestos laden mastic as well, so we pulled all that out and then we're able to paint that as well, and that's a great space now. High school pavement repairs, this was a local budget project. We had about 39,000 square feet of pavement that we were in need of replacement. So the main entrance, the visitor drive, as you pass the front of the visitor parking and then past the high school, and then also the Stafford Circle were all replaced. Some of that was worse than we got. Once we got into there, some of it needed to be upgraded even more and dug down, and so that cost went up a little bit. But overall, it was a good first phase of some additional pavement that will probably need to be replaced next summer, which was already budgeted. And the Stafford Video Communications renovation, this was probably, I would say, our second biggest project in terms of impact to teaching and learning. This space, we were able to, the slide on the right basically shows the original walls, which are in pink, and then the green are basically the walls that we added. We basically had to remove and then add walls to make it more open teaching space. It was a very chopped up space to try to teach in, so it creates a more open learning space and upgrades that space a lot. So that's, and then there's the finished product. And then the last topic we talked about in our building committee was the stormwater project. As I've been sharing, this is a project that requires, it's a state mandate that we treat any stormwater that's off of impermeable surface, so that's roof and parking lots. The study, initial study and the feasibility study is paid for fully by the state. Unlike other small businesses, we do have funding for this study. We found out at Northeast that there's no need for treatment because once that we did the full measurement of all the impermeable surfaces, it was at like 3.89 acres, or I'm sorry, 2.9 acres. So we're under the 3 acre requirement, and that was signed off for and approved by the state, so we're off the hook for any construction needed there. At our IS and middle school campus, basically you see on this slide the red boxes. Essentially, those are going to be the areas in which a storm detention basin with some filters are going to need to be added in order to treat the runoff so that we can meet our requirements. So this is the proposed. The engineer basically does a study, comes up with where the water needs to be deferred to, and he comes up with a 30% drawing. So we're at like 30% of the initial drawing. Those drawings, once we approve it, provide input, go to the state for approval. Once they review that, then it'll come back and they'll do the final set. But essentially, these 2 areas are going to require some digging up of the area. They'll put a detention area. It's got some filtration. You can't do a natural pond-like structure, kind of like at the high school along Woodstock Avenue. Because of the space, you're kind of confined with, you want to get a whole lot of filtration in a small space. So this is the, we'll know more after, and we'll have construction cost after the state approves. But Enman Kesselring Engineer is our local engineer on record for this project, and they've been doing a great job. So that's our building committee update. Anybody have any questions on that?
I just had a quick testimonial. One of my kids' friends posted a selfie right after school started, and she said, in video communications, I'm so happy to be back in this space. And then she said, this space is ridiculous right now. It's gorgeous. And then I commented and said something like, oh, I'm going to have to come harass you. I didn't know you were in there. I want to go check out the space. And she's like, oh my God, it's amazing. I love it here. I want to spend all day in this room. So I was like, oh, that's so good. So yeah, they're already loving it.
Thanks for sharing that. It's
Yeah.
wonderful to hear it.
A lot of work done. Yeah, thanks for all that.
Great,
That leadership.
Thank
No
you all.
other questions? Okay, good. Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.
I'll give a brief update on the Finance and Strategic Planning Committee. We met last Tuesday, the 5th, you'll say the 25th, nope, the 5th of September. We really covered 3 main topics, the budget, timeline and assumptions, the audit update, and the strategic plan update, some of which we've had some updates on already tonight. So, earlier tonight, Ted gave us a nice update on gave the board a nice update on the overview of the fiscal year 2025 budget timeline and the assumptions that we discussed. So I just want to reiterate a key message is that both the Finance Committee and the school board will review and comment on the development of that budget in at least 3 to 4 meetings during the next several months. We have lots of time, lots of places to give input before we're asked to vote on it in January. We'd also like to, Ted and I would like to remind all of you here that you're welcome to attend any of the Finance Committee budget reviews, even if you're not a committee member. So y'all are welcome to join those really exciting and important conversations about the budget. So topic 2, like I said, was the audit update that we spoke about, and both audits are on track to be completed this month, which is really great news. There's only one material control weakness that was identified by the auditor, and our business office obviously has agreed to correct that. Fortunately, that weakness did not result in any sort of material misstatement of the district's financial results. So we're good there. This fall, the auditor and the auditor partner in charge, Rick Brigham, will be invited to speak to us directly, so that we can all have an opportunity to ask him any questions that we might have. And our third topic, like I mentioned, was the strategic plan, which I know Bill has mentioned a little bit tonight. There is food, and usually pretty yummy snacks, right? I think we can attest to that when we have them at the theater. So just like popcorn and chips and salsa, and I don't know.
All the healthy stuff.
I'm always like mad I ate before I went. I'm like, why don't I remember their snacks? So anyway, Bill and the business office sent more than 200 invitations to school district constituents, stakeholders, parents, the usual group of folks we want to include in decisions like this, looking to create participation for the strategic planning process. So far, we have about 40 replies out of the 200 invitations, with about a 2/3 acceptance rate. We have 24 yeses for a total of 37. And we're hoping for 70 to 80 people. So if you know people that have been invited, please get them to RSVP to Betty, including those of us here around the table. That's kind of what we had for the Portrait of a Graduate process last year, was between 70 and 80 folks each meeting, which was really, really helpful. Those of us that were in the room there, we know that was really good. In many respects, this strategic planning process is going to look a lot like that development of the portrait. Beth Silvera is going to be our consultant again. She's tremendous. We really love working with her. She'll be doing real-time surveys at the meetings like we did, collecting lots of data and reporting back to us at the next meeting, and sharing that feedback with us. Like I said, we do hope that all of us here will participate as much as we're able to. And our first meeting, as Bill mentioned, is next Wednesday, the 20th, at the high school theater from 4 to 6. Each meeting is warned as an open meeting for which Betty will take minutes. Thank you, Betty. And our next meeting of the Finance and Strategic Planning Committee will be on October 3rd from 6 to 7. Any questions on that? Thanks for the excellent notes, Ted. No questions?
Can I jump onto that? If
Sure.
you guys know any students who have any inclination to come to this kind of thing,
Yeah.
student input is really valuable.
Right.
It's been really an eye-opener to have students speaking about these topics instead of just the adult blah, blah, blah stuff.
Yeah.
It's really important to have the real, yeah.
We like our blah, blah, blah stuff.
I know, but
We feel they're very
it's
important.
much more real to have the student perspective, and it's important.
Yeah.
So if you do know someone, you pass that name on to, I think Ms. McKean is gathering up some names. We're still looking for more students, so.
Good. And we had an error on the agenda. I had Kevin giving us a policy committee report, but we have not met. Since there's only
Say
been.
that I have nothing to report.
So he has nothing to report. We have not met because we've only had 2 weeks since the last school board meeting. So
Right,
there was
our
not a-
next meeting will be next Tuesday, the 19th,
Yes.
at 5 o'clock.
Great. So you did have a report.
Clean
There you
reporting.
go.
Clean. Yeah. All right, great. I don't think we have any unfinished business. Oh gosh, what do I do with that stuff though? Okay, thank you. Sorry, I had it right here. No unfinished business. I don't think we have any new business. But I would entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing school security measures and student discipline, the premature release of information regarding those subjects which would place the board at a substantial disadvantage. We'd like Bill Olson, Pam Reed, Rob Bliss, Rob Becker, and Megan Marsh to stay and join us.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thanks. We'll take a couple minute recess while others depart.